Heather McDonald introduced the world to the term the Ferguson effect. In her new book, The War on Cops, McDonald expands on the research and controversial reporting surrounding that phrase and the criminal justice system.
Heather joins us now. Good morning. Thanks for being with us.
Hi, Larry. Hi, Robin. Thank you for having me on.
So in the wake of this shooting in Dallas on Friday, a lot of people think this sniper was a lone mentally ill person. But do you think this is part of a wider picture?
Well, I think definitely the mendacious rhetoric against the cops that we've been hearing for the last 2 years has consequences. This is not the first assassination of police officers inspired by Black Lives Matter activists. We had in 2014 in December, 2 New York police officers were assassinated in very similar motivation as alleged retribution against the false claim that police officers are gunning down blacks with impunity. So I think that you cannot continue to assert that cops are out to get black males without expecting at some point there to be some very negative consequences of that.
So Heather, I'm sure people with Black Lives Matter would say it was a peaceful protest. The people involved in that protest, it was a peaceful march, and it's hard to blame them for what happened to the officers.
Well, rhetoric has consequences, and the fact is I'm more concerned with the day-to-day oppression that officers are getting now in inner cities when they get out of their car to make a pedestrian stop and they're surrounded by hatred. A police officer in Chicago about a month ago when I was out there told me he's never seen such hatred in the streets in his 20 years on the job. He said the job is basically undoable now. And that's because people have been fed this lie that policing is racist, when in fact there's no government agency more dedicated to the proposition that Black Lives Matter than the police.
Well, let's take a look at some of the research that's been. Now, we mentioned yesterday a new study from Harvard, and it showed that there is no racial bias in police shootings, but black men and women are treated differently by law enforcement. So no racial bias when it comes to shootings, but they are treated differently. This chart shows in New York City, police are 19% more likely to draw a weapon on a black person than a white person in similar situations, and police are 24% more likely to point a weapon at a black person than a white person. And, you know, there are numbers all over the place on both sides of this. This is difficult to study because unless you have video of all these different things, you're essentially accepting what the police are documenting, which I think some communities would have difficulty with. But regardless, there's a perception there that they are treated unfairly. Is this a police procedure problem that needs to be fixed, or is it something in the short term, or is it more than that?
Well, Larry, first of all, let me say, of course, we need to confirm police accounts, but we certainly also need to confirm witness accounts. Let's not forget that the Michael Brown hoax was perpetrated by witnesses who were lying through their teeth. So both sides need confirmation. And you absolutely need more details about what preceded any officer use of force. I don't know what the study means by similarly situated. In Chicago, blacks are arrested for resisting arrest at 10 times the rate of whites and 100 times that of Asians. It's not surprising, given the vindictive rhetoric against cops, that there would be more likelihood of resisting arrest on the part of blacks, and the biggest predictor of officer behavior is civilian behavior. This study that showed, in fact, not only is there no bias against blacks in police shootings, but the police are less likely to shoot armed blacks, is confirming an earlier study this year that was the most sophisticated to date of officer shoot, don't shoot decisions, that found that officers take longer to decide to shoot armed black suspects than armed white suspects, and are less likely to shoot unarmed black suspects than unarmed white suspects. So the Black Lives Matter narrative is exactly 100% wrong.
But do they have a point that we feel victimized? People are still protesting because they see these videos, you see these 2 videos, and they're hard to watch.
But we don't see videos of the 2,000 people in Chicago who were shot this year, as of July 9th, 2090, the police shot 9 people. That's 0.4% of all shootings in Chicago. We don't see video of the shooting of the 3-year-old boy on Father's Day, who's now paralyzed for life in Chicago, or the 4-year-old boy shot in the back a few weeks later, or the 3 children shot on July 4th, nor do we see video of whites shot by the police. So what we have here is a media-driven phenomenon. Of course, officers need constant training in courtesy and respect. They need to treat everybody with dignity. They also would love more tactical training. They do not need the fallacious implicit bias training, which President Obama and Hillary Clinton is promoting. That's a waste of money and a fraud. But yes, give them more tactical training. But the idea that officers are driven by race, not behavior, is simply wrong. And as we've seen, this is a dangerous lie.
Well, Heather, we appreciate you joining us. That's Heather McDonald. The book is War on Cops. There's a study in the New York Times out this morning, one from the Washington Post that they've done. And there are a lot of numbers out there, and it's going to take a while to sort all this out.
Heather, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Robin.